Our world is engineered for ease, yet we feel more fragile than ever. This is the paradox of modern comfort. We have mastered our physical environment, removing friction from every part of life. But this very success may be weakening our minds. The ancient Stoics proposed a counterintuitive solution, not by rejecting comfort, but by strategically choosing its opposite. They practiced voluntary discomfort. This was not self-punishment, but a training regimen for the psyche. By the end of this exploration, you will understand the exact psychological blueprint that turns chosen hardship into unshakable resilience. We will uncover how deliberately feeling cold or hungry or socially awkward can rewire your brain's response to all of life's. What does your own mind do when it first encounters a challenge it could easily avoid? Think of your average day from the moment you wake up. A gentle chime replaces a harsh alarm. Your home's temperature is a constant, perfect 70 degrees, maintained by a system you never see. You tap a screen and hot coffee appears, or a complete meal is delivered to your door within minutes. Boredom is instantly solvable with endless streams of entertainment, curated just for you. Social connection is a text message away, requiring no travel, no waiting, no real effort. This is not a luxury, it is the baseline of modern life. We have successfully engineered friction out of existence, and while this has solved innumerable physical hardships, it has created a quiet psychological vacuum. Our ancestors faced a world of constant, low-grade challenge. Finding food was a daily puzzle. Weather was an immediate physical experience. Social bonds required sustained, in-person effort. These were not catastrophes, but micro-stressors, the kind of small, frequent difficulties that forced the mind to adapt, to problem solve, to persevere. That environment was a gym for resilience. Our modern world, by beautiful design, has removed those weights. We no longer lift the psychological barbells of patience, of discomfort, of slight uncertainty. The muscle, without a reason to flex, begins to weaken. We see the symptoms everywhere. A minor inconvenience, like a slow internet connection or a delayed package, sparks disproportionate frustration. The anxiety of an unplanned social interaction, or the mental fatigue from making too many small choices, feels overwhelming. There is a diminished sense of personal agency, a feeling that we are passive consumers of a pre-packaged reality, rather than active navigators of our own experience. The comfort we built to protect us has, in a subtle way, made us more vulnerable to life's ordinary tremors. This is the core of the modern paradox. The solution, then, is not to demolish the thermostat or cancel your food delivery subscription. That would be a rejection of progress, and it is unnecessary. The Stoic insight is far more practical. It suggests we do not live in the hard world, but that we visit it. We supplement our comfort with deliberate, voluntary practice. We become psychological athletes who choose our training, so we are never forced into a game for which we are unprepared. The ancient Stoics saw this coming. 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor writing in his private journal and a former slave teaching students in Greece arrived at the same profound conclusion. Marcus Aurelius, ruling one of history's greatest empires, constantly reminded himself of a simple, powerful idea. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." His teacher, Epictetus, put it even more bluntly. He said, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will go on well." This is the foundational principle, the ideological bedrock. The obstacle is not a detour on your path. The obstacle is the path itself. This is a complete reframing of reality. It transforms hardship from a misfortune that happens to you into the essential raw material that works for you. Think of a blacksmith forging a sword. He does not look at the intense heat of the fire and think, "What an unfortunate setback. The fire is not the problem, the fire is the entire point." Without that searing heat, the metal remains soft, weak, and useless. The obstacle, in this case the fire, is the only thing that can create strength, edge, and resilience. This is the philosophical shift from a passive victim mindset to an active, creative engagement. When you see a challenge as a malicious block, you are at its mercy. Your energy goes into complaint, into wishing things were different. But when you see that same challenge as the fire, your entire perspective changes. Your energy redirects. Now you ask, how do I work with this heat? What shape can this pressure help me form? What strength is being asked of me right now? This principle moves us from theory to the threshold of training. It answers the why before we attempt the how. Voluntary discomfort is the practical application of this idea. It is you choosing to step into a manageable fire so that when a real blaze erupts in your life, you are not consumed by panic. You know how to work with the heat. You have already met the obstacle on your own terms and discovered it was not an enemy but the very substance of your own forging. So what does this training actually look like in practice? Voluntary discomfort is a conscious, premeditated choice to step into a manageable level of hardship within a controlled setting. The emphasis is on the words choice and manageable. This is not about seeking pain for its own sake. It is not self-punishment, which is rooted in guilt, nor is it recklessness, which ignores real danger. It is also profoundly different from simply enduring unavoidable suffering where you have no agency. That kind of suffering can break a person. Voluntary discomfort, by contrast, is designed to build you. Think of the difference between an athlete and a soldier. A soldier in battle faces extreme, involuntary stress that is about survival. An athlete in training chooses stress that is difficult but calculated, with the sole purpose of increasing capacity. The Stoic practice is athletic, not martial. It is also distinct from asceticism, which is a lifestyle of permanent renunciation. The Stoic is not trying to live in a barrel or own nothing. They are a person living in the modern world who, on a Tuesday morning, decides to take a cold shower. They are not rejecting warmth forever. They are visiting the cold to remember they can tolerate it, to feel their own inner warmth grow stronger in response. The practice is temporary and targeted, like a focused drill. The examples are everywhere once you know what to look for. It is choosing to walk in the rain without complaint, to feel the chill and keep moving. It is practicing a digital detox, not because technology is evil, but to remember you can be bored and be okay. It is intermittent fasting, not as a fad diet, but to experience mild hunger and observe that it passes, that your mind remains clear. It is engaging in a difficult physical workout, not to punish your body, but to meet your perceived limit and gently push beyond it. In every case, the power lies in the intent. You are not a victim of the cold water. You are the one who turned the knob. That simple shift from passive endurance to active choice changes everything neurologically. It transforms a stressor into a challenge, and your brain responds not with helplessness, but with focused engagement. This is the precise mechanism where psychological resilience is forged. The true power of this practice lies in its first, most immediate mechanism. It systematically lowers your personal baseline of what you consider suffering. Think of your mind as having a thermostat for discomfort, a set point that determines when a situation feels like a crisis. For many of us, that thermostat is set incredibly high. A room that is slightly too warm, a commute with mild traffic, a critical comment from a colleague, these can trigger a full-scale stress response. Our internal alarm bells ring at the slightest provocation because we have lived in a perfectly climate-controlled emotional environment. Voluntary discomfort works by gently turning that thermostat down. It recalibrates your perception by expanding what psychologists call your window of tolerance. This is your mental and emotional capacity to handle life's stressors without becoming overwhelmed or shutting down. A narrow window means you are easily knocked off balance. A wide window means you can experience significant pressure and still think clearly, feel your feelings, and respond effectively. How do you widen that window? Not by hoping for an easy life, but by deliberately practicing within a manageable range of difficulty. This is where a fascinating neurological process gets put into reverse gear. We are all familiar with hedonic adaptation in its normal form. You buy a new car and for a week it feels incredible. Then the novelty fades and it is just your car. You get a raise and your lifestyle inflates to match, leaving you no happier than before. Our nervous system is designed to adapt to new levels of pleasure and comfort, quickly returning us to a neutral baseline. Voluntary discomfort uses this same adaptive principle but points it in the opposite direction. It is hedonic adaptation working for you instead of against you. By regularly introducing a controlled dose of hardship, you teach your nervous system to adapt to that too. The cold shower is a perfect laboratory for this. On day one, the shock is visceral. Your mind screams that this is a problem, an emergency to be escaped, but you stay, you breathe, you observe the sensation without fighting it. On day two, it is still cold, but the shock is slightly less. By day 7, something subtle has shifted. The water is just as cold, but your relationship to it has changed. It is no longer a threat, it is a sensation, a practice, and here is the magical side effect. When you step out of that cold shower and later take your normal warm one, that warm shower does not feel normal anymore. It feels deeply, profoundly luxurious. You notice the heat in a way you never did when it was your constant default. This is the recalibration in action. Your baseline for comfort has been reset lower, so ordinary comforts now register as genuine pleasures. This recalibration then ripples out into your entire day. The minor irritations that used to hijack your mood, the long line at the coffee shop, the slow-loading web page, the awkward small talk, begin to lose their power. Why? Because you have already met a chosen challenge that morning. You have already proven to yourself that you can handle discomfort. In comparison, these petty annoyances are not even in the same league. They become background noise, not front-page news for your nervous system. You have, quite literally, made your mind a harder target for life's trivial arrows. This is not about becoming numb or indifferent. It is about gaining perspective. By voluntarily touching a higher level of difficulty, you create a new psychological contrast. The cold makes the warm feel warmer. The hunger makes the meal taste richer. The difficult conversation makes peaceful silence feel more valuable. You are not removing life's pleasures, you are amplifying them by creating a meaningful scale on which they can be measured. This direct strengthening of your endurance muscle leads us to the second powerful mechanism. Beyond simply resetting your comfort baseline, voluntary discomfort actively builds your tolerance for hardship. It is the difference between adjusting a thermostat and installing a more powerful furnace. Each time you consciously choose to stay in a difficult situation, you are not just enduring, you are training. Think of it like lifting weights for your mind. When you hold a challenging yoga pose, your muscles shake and burn. You want to quit, but you breathe and hold for just a few more seconds. In that moment, you are not just stretching your hamstrings, you are teaching your entire nervous system how to maintain composure under physical strain. You are building the neural pathways for calm focus amidst discomfort. This is the essence of stress inoculation, a concept borrowed from psychology. Just as a vaccine introduces a tiny, weakened version of a virus to train your immune system, voluntary discomfort introduces a manageable dose of stress to train your psychological immune system. You are giving your mind a safe simulation of adversity so it learns the protocol. it learns that this sensation, whether it is cold, hunger, fatigue, or social awkwardness, is not a catastrophe. It is a signal, a wave that rises and eventually passes, and crucially, you remain functional throughout. You discover that you can be uncomfortable and still think. You can be anxious and still act. You can be tired and still persevere. This process directly increases your functional bandwidth. Imagine your mind as a container for life's challenges. A small, fragile container overflows quickly. A minor work deadline or a family disagreement fills it to the brim, causing you to become overwhelmed, reactive, or shut down completely. Voluntary discomfort is the practice of slowly, safely expanding the size of that container. Each chosen act of endurance adds another layer of capacity. You are proving to yourself in a tangible way that you can hold more. So when an involuntary stressor arrives, like a sudden financial pressure or a conflict in a relationship, your container is not already full from the petty annoyances of the day. You have reserve capacity. You have the mental space to assess the situation clearly, to feel the emotions without being drowned by them, and to choose a response rather than erupt in a reaction. This is not about becoming numb or stoic in the casual sense. It is the opposite of shutting down. It is about increasing your ability to stay fully present and engaged with life's difficulties, to process them without being broken by them. You are not building a wall to keep hardship out. You are building a deeper, stronger well within yourself so that when hardship comes, you have the resources to meet it, to understand it, and to integrate the experience without losing your footing. There is a deeper, more personal transformation that begins to unfold. With each cold shower you choose, each fast you willingly undertake, you are not just building tolerance. You are performing a quiet, radical act of self-authorship. In a world that constantly pushes you into reactive mode, where notifications dictate your attention and algorithms shape your desires, voluntary discomfort is a deliberate pause. It is you reaching out and turning the dial yourself. This simple choice carries a profound psychological message, one that your subconscious mind hears loud and clear. The message is this: I am in charge here. This is the third mechanism, the cultivation of a fundamental belief called self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is not self-esteem, which is a general feeling of worth. It is something more specific and powerful. It is the unshakable belief in your own capacity to handle difficult things, to influence events, and to see a challenge through to the end. It is the quiet confidence that says, I can figure this out. And how do you build such a belief? Not by reading affirmations or hoping for the best, but by collecting tiny, undeniable pieces of evidence. Every time you complete a difficult workout you did not feel like starting, you add a brick to that foundation. Every time you engage in an awkward but necessary conversation, you add another. Voluntary discomfort provides a controlled, repeatable laboratory where you can manufacture this evidence on demand. You create a personal archive of success stories, not against the world, but against your own former limits. This directly counters a dangerous psychological state known as learned helplessness. Learned helplessness occurs when someone experiences repeated situations where they feel they have no control over negative outcomes. Over time, they stop trying, even when opportunities to change their circumstances arise. They learn to be helpless. It is the feeling that nothing you do matters, so why bother? Our modern world, with its overwhelming complexity and impersonal systems, can subtly foster this feeling. You can feel like a passenger in your own life, buffeted by economic forces, social pressures, and the relentless pace of change. Voluntary discomfort is the antidote. It is a daily, tangible rebellion against that passivity. By choosing a small hardship, you prove to yourself that your actions have direct consequences. You feel the immediate cause and effect. You turn the water cold, and you endured it. This reinforces what psychologists call an internal locus of control. A person with an internal locus of control believes that their own efforts, decisions, and actions shape their life's outcomes. They see themselves as the pilot. A person with an external locus of control believes that life is mostly governed by luck, fate, or powerful others. They feel like a passenger. Resilience is almost impossible from the passenger seat because when the road gets rough, you have no steering wheel. Voluntary discomfort hands you that wheel, even if you are just driving in a safe, empty parking lot for practice. You are building the muscle memory of agency. So when a real storm hits your life, an unexpected job loss or a personal conflict, your mind does not default to helplessness. It reflexively searches for the dials it can turn, the actions it can take. You have a history of being the author of difficult experiences, so you approach this new, involuntary difficulty with the mindset of an active participant, not a powerless victim. This shift is subtle but monumental. It transforms life's inevitable hardships from things that happen to you into situations you engage with. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can I do with this?" That question is the very engine of resilience, and it is powered by the quiet, daily proof that you are, in fact, the one who can answer it. This daily proof of agency leads to a fourth, even more liberating mechanism. Voluntary discomfort systematically teaches you to separate the raw sensation of hardship from the story of catastrophe your mind instinctively tells. Think of the last time you felt a sudden jolt of anxiety. Perhaps your heart raced before a meeting, or your stomach tightened when you saw an unexpected email. In that moment, there is the pure physical sensation, the racing heart, and then, almost instantly, there is the narrative. This means I am going to fail. They will think I am incompetent. This is a disaster. Our minds are meaning-making machines, and they are notoriously bad at distinguishing between a genuine threat to our survival and a simple, uncomfortable feeling. We conflate the sensation with the story. We feel cold and think, "I cannot stand this, I am miserable." We feel hungry and think, "I am weak, I cannot focus." We feel social anxiety and think, "I will be humiliated and rejected." This conflation creates a powerful, exhausting feedback loop. The discomfort triggers a catastrophic thought, which amplifies the feeling of discomfort, which makes the thought seem even more true. It is a spiral that can turn a minor inconvenience into a full-blown crisis. Voluntary practice interrupts this loop at its source. It allows you to observe the two parts separately in a safe laboratory setting. You choose to be cold in the shower. The sensation is undeniable, a sharp shock across your skin. But you also notice something else. The catastrophic narrative your mind usually supplies, the one that screams this is unbearable, does not manifest. Or if it starts, you can watch it like a passing cloud. You observe, "I am cold, my body is reacting, I am breathing, I am still here, nothing has collapsed. No part of me is broken, the feared ruin does not arrive." In that clear space between sensation and story, a profound realization dawns. Discomfort is just a sensation. It is information from your nervous system, not a verdict on your life. This is the decoupling. Public speaking offers a perfect, universal example. For many, the very thought triggers a cascade of physical discomfort, a dry mouth, trembling hands, a racing heart. And the mind instantly attaches a catastrophic story to those feelings. If my voice shakes, everyone will see I am a fraud. I will forget everything and stand there in humiliating silence. This is social death. Now, imagine practicing voluntary discomfort in this arena. You choose to speak up in a small meeting. You volunteer to give a toast. The physical sensations are still there, the dry mouth, the quick pulse, but this time you have chosen them. You are in the laboratory. You deliver your remarks. Your voice might waver slightly, your hands might not be perfectly still, and then you finish. The world does not end. No one points and laughs. People might even nod in agreement. The catastrophic story, the one about social death, is proven false by your direct experience. The discomfort was real, but the disaster was a fiction. Each time you do this, the link between the sensation and the story weakens. The anxiety feedback loop loses its power. You begin to understand that you can feel incredibly anxious and still perform. You can be nervous and still be effective. The feeling no longer has the authority to cancel your action. This decoupling is freedom. It means that when life delivers its inevitable, involuntary hardships, you are less likely to immediately dress them in the costume of catastrophe. A financial setback becomes a difficult problem to solve, not proof that you are a failure. A conflict in a relationship becomes a painful conversation that needs to happen, not evidence that you are unlovable. You have learned through direct, repeated practice that discomfort is a territory you can pass through. It has borders, it ends, and on the other side, you are still fundamentally intact, capable, and whole. This is not about eliminating feeling, but about removing the terrifying meaning we so often glue to it, freeing us to respond to the actual situation, not the phantom disaster our minds have invented. This decoupling of sensation from story creates a remarkable space for a fifth mechanism to flourish. When you no longer see ordinary comforts as guaranteed entitlements, something profound shifts in your perception. You begin to truly notice them. Voluntary, temporary deprivation of the very things we rely on has a singular power. It restores our ability to feel genuine gratitude. This is not the vague, polite thankfulness we express out of habit. This is a deep, sensory appreciation that rewires your relationship to the everyday. Think of the simple act of eating. When every meal is a convenient, flavorful experience, chosen from an endless array of options, the act of nourishment becomes routine, even mundane. The taste dulls through repetition. Now practice eating simply for a day, a plain meal of rice and vegetables, or skipping a meal altogether in a controlled fast. The experience is not about punishment but about contrast. When you finally eat your next normal meal, the flavors explode. The texture of the food, the complexity of spices, the simple act of sharing a table with someone, all of it feels vivid and significant. You are not just consuming calories, you are participating in a small miracle of sustenance that, for a moment, you truly see. The same principle applies to our digital lives. By consciously disconnecting for an afternoon or even a full day, you break the compulsive scroll. The first hour might feel restless, but a quiet settles in. You notice the light in the room, the weight of a book in your hands, the uninterrupted flow of your own thoughts. When you reconnect, you do so with intention. That message from a friend feels like a connection, not a notification to be cleared. The temporary absence clears the static, allowing the signal of genuine value to come through clearly. This practice systematically dismantles the cycle of taking things for granted. Our brains are wired to adapt to constant stimuli, to file the ever-present comforts into the background noise of life. Voluntary discomfort interrupts that automation. It creates a deliberate pause, a reset button for your appreciation. The warm bed feels luxurious after a night in a sleeping bag. The hot shower feels like a gift after a long, gritty hike. The quiet of your home feels like peace after a day in a noisy crowd. You are not manufacturing artificial scarcity. You are revealing the abundance that was always there, hidden in plain sight by the sheer constancy of its presence. This refreshed perspective acts as a powerful buffer against two corrosive emotional states, entitlement and chronic disappointment. Entitlement whispers that you deserve constant ease, that any inconvenience is a personal offense. Dispositional disappointment is the low-grade frustration that comes from a world that never quite matches your elevated expectations. When you periodically visit life without a certain comfort, you dismantle the belief that you are owed it. The comfort, when it returns, is received as a benefit, not a birthright. This makes you far less emotionally vulnerable when life inevitably removes a comfort you did not choose. The internet goes down, and instead of spiraling into agitation, you remember you can be without it. The restaurant is closed, and instead of feeling cheated, you appreciate the simplicity of a meal at home. Your emotional stability is no longer pegged to the flawless functioning of everything around you. You have built an inner foundation of gratitude that exists independently of external conditions. This is not about feeling guilty for your comforts. That would be another form of negative storytelling. It is about earning your appreciation for them through the direct experience of their temporary absence. You move from being a passive consumer of comfort to an active curator of your own gratitude. And in that space, you find that the greatest resilience often comes not from hardening yourself against loss, but from softening your heart to the profound, ordinary gifts that are already here. But how does this internal shift, this growing sense of agency and gratitude, actually take root? The answer lies not just in philosophy, but in the physical architecture of your brain. Your mind is not a fixed machine, but a dynamic, living network constantly rewiring itself based on your experiences. This is called neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to change its own structure and function. Every thought you think, every skill you practice, every challenge you face, literally carves new pathways and strengthens certain connections while letting others fade. Resilience, then, is not a vague character trait, but a specific, trainable neurological state, and the key to triggering this beneficial rewiring is a particular kind of stress. Not the chronic, overwhelming stress that feels helpless and inescapable, which can indeed be damaging over time. We are talking about manageable, acute stress, the kind you choose and can control. When you engage in voluntary discomfort, you are sending a very specific signal to your nervous system. You are essentially telling your brain, "This is difficult, but I am safe and I am in charge." In response to this targeted challenge, your brain releases a powerful protein often called fertilizer for the mind, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Think of BDNF as a nourishing rain that falls on the neural gardens of your brain, particularly in the prefrontal cortex. This is the region right behind your forehead, your brain's command center for executive function. It is where you plan, focus, make decisions, and most importantly, regulate your emotions. When BDNF is released during manageable stress, it strengthens the connections between neurons in this critical area. It helps build thicker, more robust networks for calm decision-making under pressure. It is like reinforcing the infrastructure of a city to better withstand a storm. You are not just practicing patience in a cold shower, you are biologically enhancing your brain's capacity for patience in all areas of life. This process stands in stark contrast to what happens under chronic, uncontrollable stress. When stress feels endless and you have no sense of agency, the brain's response shifts. The amygdala, the alarm bell for threat, becomes overactive and hypersensitive. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the rational planner, can actually weaken and shrink in its connectivity. This is the neurological signature of feeling overwhelmed and helpless, where every small problem feels like an emergency because your brain's alarm system is too loud and its control center is too quiet. Voluntary discomfort flips this script. By choosing the stress, you keep the prefrontal cortex online and engaged. You are actively directing the neural traffic, not being hijacked by it. Each session is a workout that says to your brain, "See, we can handle this. Let's build more capacity right here." Over time, this repeated, targeted practice does not just teach you to be resilient, it physically rewires your brain to default to resilience. The pathways for calm focus in the face of discomfort become the well-worn, automatic routes. So when an unexpected life stressor hits, your brain does not immediately default to panic mode. It accesses a stronger, more connected prefrontal cortex. It draws on a history of successfully navigating chosen challenges, and it applies that same neurological blueprint to the new, uninvited one. You have quite literally trained your hardware to run the software of resilience more efficiently. The brain's remarkable capacity for change finds its most direct training ground in the body itself. This is where philosophy meets the pavement, where abstract ideas of resilience are forged in the tangible fires of physical sensation. The Stoics understood that the mind does not exist in a vacuum. It is intimately tethered to the flesh, and by mastering the body's immediate primal protests, we can strengthen the mind's ultimate command. This practice is not about athletic achievement or physical punishment. It is about using the body as a deliberate instrument to train attention, discipline, and will. Let's explore the specific arenas where this training takes place, starting with the most visceral, cold exposure. A deliberate cold shower or a brief plunge into cool water is a masterclass in present-moment awareness. The shock is immediate and total, demanding your full attention. In that instant, every distracting thought is washed away. The mind's instinct is to flee, to panic, to curse the discomfort. The practice is to stay, to breathe deeply into the sensation, and to observe the storm of protest without obeying it. The Stoic rationale is clear. You are not trying to enjoy the cold. You are proving to yourself that you can face a powerful, unpleasant stimulus and remain composed. You learn that the screaming impulse of the body is not a command, but a suggestion you can acknowledge and choose to override for a higher purpose, your own training. Similarly, heat exposure, like time in a sauna, offers a different but equally potent lesson. The enveloping warmth creates a slow, building pressure. The mind whispers that it is too much, that you should exit now. Sitting with that building discomfort teaches endurance and patience. It shows you that you can tolerate intense sensation without needing to immediately escape it, building a tolerance for psychological pressure that feels similarly inescapable. Then there is the practice of intermittent fasting. This goes far beyond dietary trends. It is a direct engagement with one of our most basic drives, hunger. By choosing to delay a meal, you create a space to observe the body's signals without being enslaved by them. You notice the gnawing sensation, the mental fog, the irritability. And then you notice something else. Those sensations peak and then often subside. You discover that hunger is a wave, not a permanent state. This decouples the physical need from the emotional narrative of deprivation or emergency. It reinforces that you are not your cravings and that you can function, even think clearly, while experiencing a fundamental want. The practice of occasional, intentional sleep restriction follows a similar principle. By deliberately getting slightly less sleep than usual, in a planned and controlled way, you confront the mental fog and fatigue of the next day not as a miserable accident, but as a chosen training environment. You practice focusing through the haze, maintaining patience when your resources feel low. The goal is not chronic exhaustion, which is harmful, but the occasional visit to the frontier of your energy to remember that you can still operate, still be kind, still be effective, even when you are not at 100%. This builds incredible resilience for those inevitable life phases, like new parenthood or intense work projects, where full rest is simply not an option. Finally, demanding physical exercise serves as the comprehensive gym for the will. Whether it is lifting weights to the point of muscle fatigue, holding a difficult yoga pose, or pushing through the final mile of a run, you are engaged in a constant dialogue between the body's desire to stop and the mind's decision to continue. Each rep, each extra second, each additional step is a tiny victory of intention over impulse. The strength you build is not merely in the muscles, but in the neural pathway that says, go on, when every signal says, cease. In every one of these physical training grounds, the underlying principle is identical. You are using the body's language of protest to teach the mind a new vocabulary of command. The aim is never to break the body, but to demonstrate through repeated, tangible experience that you are more than its temporary states. You are the one who chooses the purpose, who sets the limit, and who decides what meaning to assign to the sensation. This daily physical dialogue builds a quiet, unshakable confidence that translates far beyond the gym or the shower. It whispers to you during a difficult conversation or in a moment of crisis that you have met greater protests than this and remained steadfast. Physical mastery reveals a profound truth. The body's protests are often simpler to face than the subtle, intricate challenges of other people. Our social world is a far more complex training ground where the stakes feel personal and the feedback is not a physical sensation, but a look, a word, a silence. This is the arena where voluntary discomfort moves from the private realm of cold showers into the vulnerable space of human connection. The Stoics called this practice building apatheia, a term often misunderstood as becoming emotionless. Its true meaning is far more powerful. It is freedom from destructive passions, the chaotic storms of fear, anger, and envy that cloud our judgment and make us slaves to other people's opinions. The goal is not to stop caring, but to stop being controlled by the fear of how others might react. So how do you train for this? You step into the very social situations you instinctively avoid. You begin with the practice of deliberate, difficult conversations. This is not picking fights, but consciously choosing to address a minor friction you would normally let slide. It might be giving gentle, honest feedback to a coworker, or expressing a personal need to a family member in a calm, clear way. The voluntary discomfort here is the anticipatory anxiety, the tightness in your chest before you speak, the risk of an awkward moment. The training is in staying present through that discomfort, focusing on clarity and respect rather than on controlling the other person's response. You are practicing the art of maintaining your inner integrity while navigating the unpredictable waters of another person's feelings. Another powerful exercise is actively seeking constructive criticism. Our egos naturally recoil from this, preferring the safety of praise or silence. To voluntarily ask, "What is one thing I could do better?" is to invite a small dose of social friction for the sake of growth. It trains you to hear feedback not as a personal attack, but as neutral data, separating the useful signal from the emotional noise. It builds the muscle of humility and the confidence that comes from knowing you can withstand and even benefit from perspectives that challenge your self-image. Then there is the classic arena, public speaking. For many, this represents a peak of social fear. To volunteer for it, to raise your hand to present or to give a toast, is a masterclass in voluntary discomfort. The training happens in the pounding heart, the dry mouth, the moment your mind goes blank. Each time you do it, you are not just becoming a better speaker, you are proving to your own nervous system that you can survive the spotlight of attention. You learn that the judgment you fear is often a phantom, and that the connection you can create is real. Even simpler, you can practice spending time in mildly socially awkward situations without rushing to fill the silence. Attend a gathering where you know few people and resist the urge to cling to your phone. Sit with the discomfort of not being seamlessly included in a conversation. Observe the urge to perform, to impress, to people please. By not immediately acting on that urge, you create a space to discover that your worth is not dependent on constant social validation. You can be quiet, you can be on the periphery, and you are still fundamentally okay. The cumulative effect of this social training is a profound shift in resilience. You gradually reduce the reflex of people-pleasing, the exhausting habit of molding yourself to fit perceived expectations. The fear of disapproval loses its tyrannical power because you have repeatedly faced smaller versions of it and emerged intact. You begin to distinguish between being kind, which is a virtue, and being a pushover, which is a fear in disguise. This builds what we might call a stable social center of gravity. When conflict arises, as it inevitably does, you are less likely to be knocked completely off balance by anger or retreat into passive resentment. You have practiced engaging with difficulty while staying grounded. You can disagree without needing to destroy, and you can hear harsh words without internalizing them as absolute truth. This is the true meaning of apatheia in action, not an absence of feeling, but the presence of a calm, clear choice amidst the social storm. You become someone who can connect deeply precisely because you are no longer terrified of the temporary disconnections that are part of being human. The most pervasive training ground for resilience today exists not in the cold or the heat, but in the quiet glow of our screens. Our digital environment presents a unique, modern form of voluntary discomfort, one that challenges not our bodies, but our very attention and peace of mind. The constant stream of notifications, the infinite scroll of social feeds, the algorithmically curated outrage and envy, these are not neutral tools. They are engineered to capture and hold our focus, creating a low-grade state of perpetual distraction and comparison that frays our cognitive control. To practice Stoicism here is to engage in a deliberate rebellion, to reclaim your mind from these designed hijacks. One of the most powerful practices is the digital Sabbath, a pre-planned period where you disconnect entirely from non-essential screens. This is not a lazy weekend but a structured retreat. For 24 hours you let the notifications pile up unread. You leave your phone in another room. The initial discomfort is profound, a restlessness that feels almost physical. Your mind, accustomed to constant input, scrambles for stimulation. This is the exact moment of training. By sitting with that boredom, by allowing the silence to become uncomfortable, you are rebuilding a muscle most of us have allowed to atrophy, the ability to simply be with your own thoughts. You rediscover that boredom is not an emergency to be solved, but a fertile space where creativity and reflection can finally take root. Another targeted practice is the temporary deletion of social media apps. For a week, you remove the icons from your phone. The goal is not to declare these platforms evil, but to break the compulsive, mindless habit of reaching for them during every spare second. You create friction where there was seamless ease. When you feel the urge to scroll, you are met with an empty space, and in that space, you have a choice. You can sit with the feeling, or you can pick up a book, go for a walk, or actually talk to the person next to you. This practice systematically weakens the neural pathway of instant gratification and strengthens the pathway of intentional action. It proves to you that your social worth and connection are not dependent on constant digital validation. Beyond managing the medium, we must also train the quality of what we consume. Voluntary discomfort extends to your intellectual diet. This means deliberately seeking out literature, articles, or podcasts that present well-reasoned arguments which contradict your deepest held beliefs. The discomfort here is cognitive dissonance, the mental friction that arises when you encounter a challenging idea. Our natural tendency is to seek information that confirms what we already think, creating an echo chamber that makes our worldview brittle. By willingly engaging with opposing perspectives, you are not necessarily changing your mind. You are stress testing your convictions. You are practicing the mental endurance required to hold a difficult thought without immediately rejecting it, to understand an opponent's argument so well you could articulate it yourself. This builds intellectual humility and resilience, ensuring your beliefs are rooted in thoughtful consideration, not fragile dogma. Finally, we arrive at the crown jewel of modern mental training, focused attention or deep work. In a world of constant pings and tabs, the ability to concentrate on a single complex task for an extended period is a superpower born of discomfort. The practice is to schedule a 90-minute block, silence all devices, and work on one thing. The resistance will be immediate. Your mind will itch to check email, to look up a random fact, to do anything but the deep, demanding task in front of you. This is the training. Each time you notice the urge to divert your attention and gently guide it back, you are performing a rep for your prefrontal cortex. You are strengthening the neural circuitry for sustained concentration. The goal is to rebuild your tolerance for the productive strain of creation, which has been eroded by the effortless consumption of digital snippets. Together, these digital and mental practices form a comprehensive defense against the fragmentation of the modern mind. They are not about rejecting technology, but about mastering your relationship with it. You are choosing the friction of focus over the ease of distraction, the discomfort of intellectual challenge over the comfort of confirmation, and the richness of real presence over the shallow buzz of perpetual connection. In doing so, you are not just building resilience, you are reclaiming the sovereignty of your own attention, which is the very foundation of a purposeful life. The bridge from philosophy to daily life is built with a single, practical principle. Borrowed from the world of physical fitness, it is called progressive overload. This is the master key that unlocks sustainable growth, preventing the entire practice from collapsing into a burst of unsustainable effort followed by inevitable burnout. In the gym, progressive overload means you do not walk in on day one and attempt to lift the heaviest weight on the rack. You start with a weight that challenges you but allows you to complete your set with proper form. Then, over weeks and months, you add small increments, 5 pounds here, an extra repetition there. The muscle adapts and grows stronger because the demand is always just slightly beyond its current capacity. The exact same logic applies with even greater importance to building psychological resilience. Your mind has a training threshold just like your muscles. Start too far beyond it and you guarantee failure. The goal is not to break your will but to build it one manageable brick at a time. This means your first foray into voluntary discomfort should be almost laughably small. It should feel difficult but clearly achievable. It is not a test of your limits but an invitation to them. For cold exposure, this is not a 5-minute ice bath. It is turning the shower to cool for the final 30 seconds of your routine. The shock is real, but the duration is short enough that you know you can complete it. The victory is not in enduring agony, but in proving to yourself that you can choose the sensation and stay with it. For fasting, it is not a 3-day water fast. It is skipping breakfast and pushing your first meal to lunch, a manageable 12-hour window. You feel the hunger, you observe it, and you learn it is a wave that passes. For a difficult conversation, it is not confronting your most intimidating colleague about a major issue. It is offering one piece of kind, constructive feedback to a teammate on a minor point, a conversation you could keep to 10 minutes. The anxiety is present, but the stakes are low enough that you can practice the skill of clear communication under mild pressure. Starting at this scale serves a profound psychological purpose. It generates what behavioral scientists call a success spiral. Each tiny victory, each completed 30-second cold blast or navigated 10-minute talk, deposits a small piece of evidence into your mental bank account of self-efficacy. It whispers, "I can do hard things." This positive reinforcement makes you more likely to return to the practice tomorrow. It builds momentum. The danger of ignoring this principle is the single greatest reason people abandon resilience training. They hear the philosophy, feel inspired, and launch into an extreme regimen. They take a freezing cold shower for 5 minutes, hate every second, and associate the entire practice with misery. They attempt a 36-hour fast, become dizzy and irritable, and decide it is not for them. They initiate a high-stakes confrontation without practice and create unnecessary conflict. In each case, they started with a weight that was guaranteed to crush them. The result is not growth, but a reinforced belief that hardship is something to be avoided at all costs. It is the psychological equivalent of tearing a muscle, an injury that makes you afraid to return to the gym. Progressive overload protects you from this. It honors the fact that growth is a process, not an event. Once you have consistently mastered your starting point, you add the smallest possible increment. You extend the cold water to 45 seconds, then 60. You extend your fasting window by 1 hour. You make your difficult conversation slightly more substantive. The increases are so gradual they feel almost effortless, yet over months, they compound into a transformation you would have never believed possible from day one. This methodical approach does more than build tolerance, it builds trust. You learn to trust the process, and more importantly, you learn to trust yourself. You see that you are not fixed but capable of continuous, gentle expansion. Your capacity for discomfort grows not through violent ruptures, but through consistent, gentle pressure like water shaping stone. This is how a philosophy becomes a lived reality, one deliberate, achievable step at a time. This methodical progression reveals a crucial distinction. The cold shower itself is just water. The skipped meal is just an empty stomach. These physical acts hold no inherent magic. The entire transformative power of this practice lies in two invisible spaces: the conscious intention you carry into the act and the honest reflection you conduct after it. Without these, you are not engaging in Stoic training, you are merely performing mindless hardship. One builds resilience, the other often builds resentment. So how do you ensure you are doing the former? It begins with a simple question you must ask yourself before any voluntary discomfort. Why am I choosing this? Your answer must be clear and purposeful. Is it to build my tolerance for physical discomfort, so a chilly day no longer ruins my mood? Is it to practice my agency, to prove to myself that I am the author of this experience, not its victim? Is it to recalibrate my gratitude for the ordinary comforts I usually take for granted? This intentional framing is the difference between taking a cold shower as a punishment for overeating and taking a cold shower as a training session for your prefrontal cortex. The action is identical, but the psychological context is worlds apart. One is rooted in guilt and reaction, the other in growth and proactive choice. This premeditated why acts as your anchor during the experience. When the water hits and your mind screams to get out, you can return to your intention. This is not happening to me. I chose this to strengthen my focus. This momentary discomfort is the exact training stimulus I sought. The intention transforms the sensation from a random attack into a chosen challenge, which your brain processes in a fundamentally different, more constructive way. Then, after the act, the real work of wisdom begins. You must close the loop with deliberate reflection. This is not a casual thought, but a structured inquiry. Find a quiet moment and ask yourself a few specific questions. How did my mind react in those first few seconds? Did it immediately scream catastrophe, or was there a sliver of calm observation? What specific fears arose? Was it the fear of being cold, or a deeper story about weakness or misery? And most importantly, was the experience as bad as my imagination predicted? Almost always the answer is no. The anticipatory anxiety, the story our minds weave beforehand, is almost always worse than the lived reality. By comparing the feared fantasy to the actual event, you gather priceless data. You collect evidence that your predictive mind is an alarmist and that you are far more capable than it gives you credit for. This reflective practice is what turns a simple experience into integrated wisdom. It takes the raw data of sensation and emotion and processes it into understanding. Without it, the experience remains a disconnected event, a box checked off. With it, the lesson is extracted, examined, and cemented into your neural pathways. You are not just enduring, you are learning about the very machinery of your own resistance. This intentional loop, purpose before and reflection after, is the golden thread that weaves isolated acts of discipline into the fabric of a resilient character. It ensures you are not just going through the motions, but actively engaging in the deepest form of self-education, where the subject is your own capacity and the classroom is your daily life. That internal voice of protest is the most predictable part of the entire process. The moment you consider a cold shower, or skipping a meal, or initiating an awkward talk, a familiar committee convenes in your mind. It will present a list of perfectly reasonable excuses. You are too tired today, the timing is not right, it is not that important, maybe you should just do it tomorrow. This is not a sign you are weak, it is proof your mind is working exactly as designed, seeking to conserve energy and avoid perceived threats. The Stoics did not aim to silence this voice, but to develop a new relationship with it, to hear its arguments and then calmly choose a different path. The first powerful tool for this is an ancient exercise called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This sounds grim, but its purpose is profoundly liberating. It is not about dwelling on catastrophe, but about removing the element of surprise from hardship. Each morning, you take a few moments to mentally walk through your day. You anticipate the potential frustrations, the possible setbacks, the minor discomforts. You visualize the traffic jam, the difficult question in the meeting, the feeling of hunger if you are fasting. By doing this in the calm of the morning, you are vaccinating your mind against the shock of the event when it arrives. You have already met it in your imagination, so when it appears in reality, it feels familiar, manageable, almost expected. This practice systematically drains the emotional charge from life's ordinary friction. The traffic jam is no longer a personal offense. It is simply the scenario you rehearsed, and now you are executing your calm response. The second strategy is to shrink the challenge down to a single, immediate step. Your mind protests against the entirety of the ordeal, the whole freezing shower, the entire 24-hour fast, the complete difficult conversation. This feels overwhelming, so you change the frame. Do not think about the whole shower, just think about turning the knob to cold. That is all you have to do right now. Once you are under the water, your only task is to take one full breath, then another. You are not enduring 10 minutes, you are just completing the next breath. This fractures the monolithic challenge into a series of achievable moments, making action possible even when motivation is absent. The final reframe is perhaps the most transformative. See the practice not as a deprivation you inflict on your present self, but as a gift you are giving to your future self. That person who will face a real crisis, who will get bad news, who will have to perform under pressure, they are relying on you right now. Every time you choose the difficult path today, you are depositing strength into their emotional bank account. You are building the neural pathways they will need to navigate their storm. This shifts the entire endeavor from a chore to an act of profound self-care and foresight. It is not about punishing the person you are, but about protecting and empowering the person you are becoming. Understand that the resistance itself is not the enemy. It is the raw material of your training. The goal is not to eliminate the voice of protest, but to observe it with detached curiosity, to thank it for its misguided attempt to protect you, and then to gently proceed with your chosen action anyway. Its volume is not a measure of your failure, but of the significance of your growth. Each time you act despite its arguments, you are not just building resilience to external hardship, you are building sovereignty over your own internal landscape. There is a subtle but corrosive shadow that can fall over this entire practice. The very discipline meant to free you from external validation can, if you are not careful, become its most potent source. This is the danger of ego, the corruption of a private training into a public performance. The cold shower stops being a lesson in resilience and becomes a story for social media. The fast becomes a topic of conversation to showcase willpower. The difficult conversation becomes an opportunity to prove your emotional toughness to others. In each case, the focus shifts from the internal transformation to the external reaction. You are no longer building virtue for its own sake. You are collecting badges of honor. The Stoics called this a fundamental error. The aim was apatheia, freedom from destructive passions, and a key destructive passion is the thirst for admiration and superiority. When you turn your practice into a performance, you are feeding that very thirst, strengthening the exact chains you are supposed to be loosening. The humble practitioner and the performer may perform identical actions, but they inhabit different psychological worlds. One steps into the cold water to meet their own resistance, to feel the shock and find the calm beneath it. The other steps in imagining the post they will write, the impressed comments, the identity of being someone who does hard things. The action is the same, but the inner orientation is opposite. One builds equanimity, the other builds a more refined, and therefore more dangerous, form of ego. The true measure of progress in this work is never how extreme the feat you can endure. It is the quality of your inner quietude afterward. Did the practice leave you feeling more grounded and less reactive, or more smug and self-congratulatory? Did it increase your capacity for patience with your family, or just your capacity to boast to your friends? The performer seeks a visible trophy, a notch on the belt of hardship. The practitioner seeks an invisible upgrade, a wider window of tolerance, a quieter mind, a more responsive heart. This is why the Stoics emphasized that the only arena that matters is the one inside your own skull. Your victory is not in the gasps of an audience, but in the silent moment where a provocation arises, and instead of the old, frantic narrative, you find a space of clear, calm choice. That space cannot be photographed or posted. It can only be lived, so guard your practice with quiet humility. Let your voluntary discomforts be secrets between you and your own character. The strength you forge in that privacy will be authentic, durable, and entirely your own, uncorrupted by the need for anyone else to see it. This quiet humility is the gateway to the final stage of the practice. The goal was never to create a separate compartment of your life labeled Stoic training. It is to weave the thread of voluntary discomfort into the very fabric of your daily existence, until the philosophy breathes through your ordinary choices. This is the shift from discrete exercises to a living mindset. It begins by learning to see the micro-opportunities for resilience that are already scattered throughout your day. You are not looking for grand hardships, but for the tiny, almost invisible points of friction where you can consciously choose the slightly more difficult path. This is about finding the friction and leaning into it. It could be as simple as choosing the harder task first on your to-do list, instead of clearing away the easy wins to procrastinate the meaningful work. That internal resistance you feel, the desire to put it off, is the exact friction you are now trained to recognize and engage. It is a miniature weight for your will. Or perhaps it is opting to walk to the corner store instead of driving, embracing the minor inconvenience of time and whether to reconnect with your body and your neighborhood. The friction is the slight extra effort, the departure from seamless ease. In conversation, it is the practice of listening fully without mentally preparing your rebuttal, leaning into the discomfort of not immediately asserting your own perspective. The friction is the patience required to truly hear another person. When someone says something provocative, it is the conscious pause you insert between the sting of their words and your reaction. That pause, that breath, is a voluntary visit to the friction of your own anger, where you reclaim the space to choose your response. These are not heroic acts. They are subtle, almost secret rebellions against the automatic pilot of comfort and reaction. They transform mundane moments into a continuous training ground. Life itself becomes the gym. The scheduled cold shower or the planned fast are your dedicated strength sessions. But these micro-choices are your daily movement, your functional fitness for the mind. They ensure you are not just resilient in theory during your morning practice, but in the flowing reality of a hectic Tuesday afternoon. This integration is what turns philosophy into character. You are no longer practicing resilience, you are becoming resilient, one friction-filled choice at a time. This quiet integration of practice into daily life works on a timeline that defies our modern expectations. We are conditioned to look for immediate results, a visible scoreboard that tells us we are winning. But the architecture of resilience is built on a different principle altogether, one of profound patience and compounding returns. Think of it not as constructing a wall brick by brick, but as planting a forest one seedling at a time. Each individual act of voluntary discomfort, each chosen moment of friction, is a single seed planted in the soil of your character. On its own, it seems insignificant. You cannot see it grow from day to day. You might even forget you planted it, but beneath the surface, a quiet, relentless process is underway. Roots are spreading, drawing strength from each experience, intertwining with others to form a vast, hidden network. This is the compound effect of psychological training. It operates with the same mathematical inevitability as financial compound interest, where small, consistent deposits grow exponentially over time, not because of one large contribution, but because of the interest earned on all the accumulated interest from before. Your daily practice works the same way. The 30-second cold shower on Monday builds a tiny increment of tolerance. On Tuesday, you begin not from zero, but from that slightly higher baseline. Wednesday's practice builds on Monday's and Tuesday's gains. The growth is microscopic, imperceptible from one day to the next. You will not wake up after a week and feel like a different person. This is why many people abandon the practice. They are looking for a sudden transformation and see only the same person in the mirror, facing the same morning resistance. But the transformation is happening in the background, in the neural pathways being reinforced, in the automatic stories that are slowly being rewritten. Then one day, perhaps 6 months or a year later, a real-life event occurs. It could be a significant professional setback, a period of intense personal pressure, or an unexpected loss. And in that moment, you discover a reservoir of calm you did not know you had. Your reaction is not the frantic, overwhelmed response of your former self. There is a steadiness, a capacity to assess the situation clearly without being drowned by the emotional wave. This is not luck, and it is not a personality trait you were born with. It is the compounded interest of all those small, seemingly insignificant deposits finally becoming visible. You are drawing from the resilience reservoir you have been filling, drop by drop, every single day. The practitioner who sticks with the process does not notice the water level rising each day, but when a drought comes, they find they have a deep well to draw from, while others are scraping at a dry basin. This non-linear payoff is the most important thing to understand about building true resilience. It requires a fundamental trust in the process itself, even when you cannot see the progress. You are not training for tomorrow's challenge. You are training for the challenge that will find you a year from now, 5 years from now. You are building psychological capital that accrues silently, paying its dividends not in daily euphoria, but in profound stability when the ground beneath you finally shakes. That stability becomes your new normal, a baseline of response so fundamentally altered that you navigate life's inevitable turbulence not as a crisis, but as terrain you were born to cross. The ultimate test of this training arrives unannounced. It is not a cold shower you choose, but a phone call you did not expect. It is not a skipped meal, but a diagnosis that changes everything. It is not an awkward conversation, but a profound personal loss that leaves the world feeling hollow. This is the moment when voluntary discomfort ceases to be a practice and becomes the very architecture of your survival. Consider a scenario many will recognize, either directly or through someone they know. After years of steady work, a person receives notice that their position is being eliminated. The news is sudden, the future instantly uncertain. For the untrained psyche, this event can feel like a total collapse. the mind races into catastrophic narratives. I am a failure. I will lose everything. This is the end. The emotional container overflows immediately with fear, shame, and panic, making clear thought nearly impossible. The sense of agency evaporates, replaced by a feeling of helpless victimhood. Now observe the same event through the lens of a mind that has been practicing. The initial shock is no less real. The disappointment, the fear, the sting of rejection, these emotions arise with full force. They are not suppressed or denied, but something critical is different. The window of tolerance, widened by months of chosen friction, is now large enough to hold this storm without shattering. The person can feel the intense anxiety without being completely identified with it. They can notice the catastrophic thoughts beginning to spiral, I am ruined, and drawing from their practice of separating sensation from story, they can gently question them. Is that true, or is it the old alarmist narrative? This ability to create a small space between the event and their reaction is the first life-saving dividend of their training. Their sense of agency, forged through countless small acts of turning the dial themselves, remains partially intact. They do not feel like a powerless leaf in a hurricane. Almost reflexively, their mind begins to search for the dials they can still turn. What is the very next step? Updating a resume, making a single phone call to a contact, taking a 30-minute walk to clear their head. These are not solutions to the larger problem, but they are actions, and each one reinforces the crucial belief, I am not helpless. I can influence what happens next. Furthermore, their practiced gratitude, refreshed by temporary deprivations, now performs a vital service. In the midst of the pain, it allows them to perceive what was not lost. They still have their health. They have a supportive partner or a friend who listens. They have skills that are transferable. This is not a Pollyannish denial of the hardship, but a conscious anchoring to the remaining pillars of their life, preventing a total emotional freefall. The involuntary hardship is met not with a brittle, fragile psyche that shatters on impact, but with a fortified one that bends, absorbs the blow, and begins the slow, steady process of reshaping itself around this new reality. The person has not been training to avoid suffering, but to meet it with resources, to navigate its terrain without getting permanently lost. Their resilience is revealed not by an absence of pain, but by the quality of their presence within it. They can grieve the loss without becoming the grief. They can feel fear without being paralyzed by it. They can acknowledge the magnitude of the challenge while still taking the next small, necessary step. This is the Stoic ideal in its purest form, not a life free from hardship, but a human being so well constructed that hardship cannot break them. It can only reveal their strength. This strength, however, must be guided by wisdom and clear boundaries. The philosophy of voluntary discomfort is a powerful tool for building psychological resilience, but it is not a universal cure, and its misapplication can cause real harm. It is crucial to understand where this practice ends and where professional care or necessary action must begin. First and foremost, this training is not a substitute for professional mental health treatment. If someone is navigating clinical depression, anxiety disorders, or the impacts of past trauma, the guidance of a qualified therapist or doctor is essential. Choosing a cold shower cannot rewire the complex neurochemical patterns of depression, and attempting to use Stoic practice in place of professional help can allow serious conditions to worsen. Think of it this way: if you had a broken leg, you would not try to heal it by walking on it a little more each day. You would seek a specialist to set the bone. The mind, when injured, deserves the same expert care. Voluntary discomfort is for maintaining and strengthening an already healthy psyche, not for treating a significant wound. Equally important, this philosophy must never be twisted into a justification for enduring abusive or toxic situations. The principle is voluntary and manageable discomfort you choose for growth. Staying in a relationship or a job environment that is emotionally manipulative, demeaning, or unsafe, while telling yourself it is building resilience, is a dangerous corruption of the idea. The Stoics advocated for wisdom and justice, not passive suffering. True resilience sometimes means having the strength to leave a harmful situation, to set a firm boundary, or to seek help. Using the language of voluntary discomfort to rationalize abuse turns a tool for empowerment into a cage. Your safety and dignity are not negotiable training grounds. Furthermore, the practice should never compromise your physical health, core responsibilities, or the well-being of those who depend on you. Skipping a meal for a short fast is one thing, but neglecting proper nutrition to the point of harming your body is not discipline, it is disregard. Choosing a difficult workout is valuable, but ignoring serious pain or injury is foolish. The goal is to build a life of greater capability and virtue, not to undermine the very foundation that life is built upon. Your responsibilities to your family, your work, and your community come first. Training is what you fit into the margins of a responsible life, not what you sacrifice your life for. The core litmus test is always in the words themselves, voluntary and manageable. The moment an act of discomfort feels coerced by external pressure or spirals beyond your control into genuine distress, it has ceased to be the practice. The entire mechanism relies on that sense of agency, on the conscious choice to engage with a challenge you know you can handle. If you lose that sense of choice, you are no longer in the laboratory, you are back in the storm. This framework is not a set of limitations meant to weaken the practice, but guardrails that ensure it leads to genuine fortification, not to a different kind of fragility. With these boundaries in place, the path remains clear, ethical, and profoundly transformative, a way to meet life not with brittle rigidity, but with adaptable, unshakable strength. This distinction is critical because on the surface they can look deceptively similar. Both involve hard work and facing difficulty, but their engines, their destinations, and their costs could not be more different. Modern hustle culture sells a story of suffering as a currency. It tells you to grind relentlessly, sacrifice sleep, skip meals, and push past all limits, all to purchase an external reward, a bigger bank account, a higher status, a viral moment of fame. The discomfort is not a practice, it is a transaction. Your pain is the price you pay for a future payoff that may never arrive, and because the goal is always outside of you, just over the next horizon, the hustle never ends. It is a treadmill of escalating effort where today's achievement is merely tomorrow's new baseline. The result is not resilience but burnout, a hollowing out of the very person doing the work. The hustle glorifies the grind for the grind's sake, often celebrating visible exhaustion as a badge of honor. It whispers that if you are not perpetually stressed, you are not trying hard enough. This is a recipe for fragility, not strength, because your entire sense of worth becomes tethered to an outcome you cannot fully control. Stoic voluntary discomfort operates on a completely different economy. Here, the currency is internal virtue, and you are both the miner and the mint. The goal is not to acquire something from the world, but to cultivate something within yourself: wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. The cold shower is not a transaction to buy future toughness. It is the expression of temperance right now. The difficult conversation is not a step on a ladder to power. It is the practice of justice and courage in this very moment. The reward is not deferred, it is immediate. It is the quiet knowledge that you acted with integrity and strengthened your character. This makes the practice inherently sustainable because it is not about depletion, but about renewal. You are not burning fuel to reach a distant finish line. You are stoking an inner fire that warms you as you walk. The Stoic seeks discomfort not to achieve outer peace through conquest, but to discover an inner peace that exists regardless of circumstance. The hustler often sacrifices all peace in the frantic pursuit of achievement. One is an endless race, the other is a deepening well. Consider two people waking up at 5 in the morning. The hustler does it fueled by anxiety, scrolling a feed of rivals who are already ahead, driven by the fear of missing out. Their early hours are a frantic scramble, a war against time and competitors. The Stoic practitioner does it as a quiet choice, a space of stillness before the world awakens. They might use the time for reflection, for reading, or for a mindful movement. The action is identical, but the inner climate is worlds apart. One is an act of aggression against the self and the world. The other is an act of care and cultivation. This is why clarifying this difference is so vital. Without it, the profound, life-giving practice of building resilience can be twisted into just another tool for self-flagellation in the service of a hollow goal. It can be co-opted by the very toxic narrative it is meant to help you transcend. True resilience is not about how much punishment you can absorb on your climb to the top. It is about how deeply you can root yourself in your own values so that no storm, whether of failure or success, can knock you from your path. The Stoic path does not ask you to hustle for your worth. It invites you to uncover the unshakable worth that already exists, and then to live from that place regardless of the weather. The real power of this practice lies in making it your own. A random cold shower on Tuesday and an awkward chat on Friday are good starts, but to build a truly resilient architecture, you need a blueprint, a personal discomfort protocol. This is not a rigid set of rules, but a rotating, living system you design to train every dimension of your capacity. Think of it like a workout plan for your mind. You would not go to the gym and only ever do bicep curls. Your body would become imbalanced, strong in one tiny area but weak everywhere else. The same is true for psychological training. If you only practice cold exposure, you might become wonderfully tolerant of physical chill, but still fall apart during a difficult conversation. True resilience is general, a flexible strength that applies to any domain life throws at you. So your protocol needs variety. A simple and effective method is to select one challenge from each of the 3 primary training grounds, physical, social, and digital, and focus on them for a set period, say a week or a month. From the physical arena, you might choose intermittent fasting, committing to a 16-hour fast 3 days that week. From the social realm, you could select the practice of seeking constructive feedback, asking one trusted person for an honest observation about an area you are working on. From the digital world, you might implement a nightly digital curfew, turning off all screens 1 hour before bed. This triad ensures you are not just hardening your body, but also stretching your social courage and reclaiming your mental clarity. The rotation is key. After a month, you switch. Perhaps physical becomes a daily cold shower for the final minute. Social becomes initiating a conversation with a stranger once a week. Digital becomes a 24-hour Sabbath from social media. By rotating the stimuli, you prevent your mind from simply adapting to one specific flavor of discomfort. You are teaching it the meta skill of handling novelty and challenge itself, building a versatile toughness that does not depend on the particular type of friction. This systematic approach transforms random acts of discipline into a coherent curriculum for your character, but the protocol alone is only half the equation. To complete the learning loop, you need a way to capture the insights. This is where a simple journal becomes your most valuable tool. It does not need to be elaborate. A few lines at the end of the day are enough. The purpose is to move the experience from your nervous system into your understanding. Before your practice, jot down your intention. Why did you choose this specific challenge today? Then, afterward, note what happened. Not just the action, but your inner world. How did your mind react in the first few seconds? What stories did it try to tell you? Was the reality as bad as the anticipation? This brief act of reflection is what turns an event into integrated wisdom. It allows you to see your own patterns, to celebrate the tiny victories when you noticed the catastrophic story and chose not to believe it, and to gently course correct when you see yourself slipping into performance or ego. Over weeks and months, this journal becomes a map of your own growth, a tangible record of your expanding window of tolerance. You can look back and see that the social interaction that terrified you in January is now a manageable routine by June. This visible proof is a powerful antidote to the feeling that you are not making progress, reinforcing your trust in the compounding process. Your personal discomfort protocol, paired with honest reflection, stops the philosophy from floating in the abstract. It pulls it down into the dirt and details of your Monday morning, your Thursday evening, your real life. It becomes not something you think about, but something you do, a quiet, consistent dialogue with your own potential, building a resilience that is as unique and adaptable as you are. This quiet, personal dialogue finds its deepest resonance when shared. The Stoic path, for all its focus on inner sovereignty, was never meant to be walked in total solitude. In ancient times, a student of philosophy always sought a mentor, a guide who had traveled further down the road. They gathered in small schools, in public porches, engaging in daily discourse not to boast of their hardships, but to test their understanding, to gain perspective, and to be gently corrected when their reasoning strayed. This communal aspect is not an add-on to the practice. It is its lifeblood, a vital counterbalance to the potential for isolation or self-deception. Your personal discomfort protocol gains a new dimension when held within a circle of shared intention. Imagine you have committed to a month of morning cold showers. Doing it alone, you will face mornings where the voice of protest is particularly persuasive. It is easy to negotiate with yourself to make an exception just for today, but if you have even one other person, a friend or a partner, who knows your commitment and is pursuing their own, something shifts. The practice is no longer a secret contract between you and your comfort. It becomes a gentle pact of mutual support. You are not reporting to a drill sergeant, but sharing the journey with a fellow traveler. This transforms accountability from an external pressure into a shared curiosity. You might send a simple text, "Just finished the cold minute," or share a brief reflection on what the hunger of a fast brought up for you. The purpose is not to perform or compete, but to witness and be witnessed. When you hear that someone else also struggled with their mind stories that day, your own struggle feels normalized, part of the human process, not a personal failure. When you share a small insight, a moment where you found a sliver of calm within the discomfort, it reinforces that possibility for everyone. This community, whether it is one other person or a small, dedicated group online, provides a priceless source of perspective. On days when your motivation wanes and the practice feels pointless, hearing how another person is applying the principles can reignite your own understanding. They might share how they used a breathing technique from a cold shower to stay calm during a stressful work call, making the connection between the training and real life vivid once more. This exchange of lived experience is where philosophy becomes practical wisdom. It helps you see your own blind spots. Perhaps you have become rigid in your protocol, turning it into a joyless checklist. A companion might gently point out that the spirit of the practice is freedom, not punishment, helping you recalibrate. Or you might be leaning too heavily into physical challenges while avoiding social ones, and the group's diversity of practices encourages you to balance your training. The key is to seek companions, not competitors. The aim is collective growth, not comparison. A healthy community celebrates effort and insight, not extremity. It is a space where you can be honest about the days you chose comfort without shame, because the response will be understanding and encouragement for the next choice. In this way, the shared commitment does the opposite of creating dependency. It actually strengthens your inner resolve. Knowing you are not alone in valuing this difficult work reinforces its worth. The encouragement you receive becomes fuel for your own self-trust, and the encouragement you give deepens your own understanding. You are building resilience not just within yourself, but within a small network of support, creating a microculture that values depth over distraction and courage over convenience. This transforms the journey from a solitary climb into a purposeful expedition, where the shared goal is not a distant peak, but the unwavering quality of the ground beneath each other's feet. This inner shift is the most important metric, and it defies any spreadsheet. You cannot quantify a moment of patience on a graph. There is no app that tracks the quieting of a catastrophic thought. The progress in this work is not measured in minutes of cold endured or boxes checked on a discipline tracker. Those are just the inputs, the training logs. The real output, the transformation itself, is entirely subjective. It lives in the subtle texture of your daily life. So instead of looking for external validation, you must become a gentle observer of your own inner weather. Your first marker is a noticeable reduction in reactivity. The minor annoyances that used to hijack your morning, the spilled coffee, the slow driver, the rude email, begin to lose their power to dictate your mood. You notice the irritation arise, a familiar heat in your chest, but something new happens. There is a pause, a breath where you can choose not to fuel it. The emotion passes through you like a weather system, rather than settling in as a permanent climate. This is not suppression. It is the spaciousness of a wider window of tolerance you have built, room enough to feel the feeling without becoming the feeling. Your patience in genuinely frustrating situations becomes another quiet signal. Standing in a long, unmoving line, you might find yourself observing the scene with curiosity instead of simmering resentment. During a tedious circular work meeting, your mind practices staying present with the boredom instead of screaming for escape. These are not acts of superhuman will, but evidence of a recalibrated nervous system. You have voluntarily visited the land of discomfort so often that these ordinary frustrations no longer register as foreign territory. They are familiar ground, and you know how to navigate them without losing your way. A greater sense of calm amidst uncertainty is perhaps the most profound indicator. Life will always deliver its surprises, a sudden change in plans, an ambiguous medical result, a shift in a relationship. The untrained mind meets ambiguity with a swirl of anxious stories, trying to resolve the unknown into a definitive, often negative conclusion. The trained mind, however, has practiced dwelling in the unresolved. It has sat with the discomfort of not knowing what comes next during a fast, or embraced the unpredictable chill of a cold shower. So when real uncertainty arrives, there is a foundational trust that you can handle the not knowing. The calm is not the absence of concern, but the presence of a deeper assurance that you have the resources to meet whatever clarity eventually emerges. Finally, observe your recovery time. When an emotional upset does hit, how long does it take you to return to your center? A harsh criticism at work or a personal disappointment will still sting. The difference is in the arc of the experience. Instead of a minor comment ruining your entire week, sending you into a spiral of rumination, you feel the hurt, process it, and find your footing again in hours or even minutes. You have built a psychological immune system that identifies the stressor, responds, and then returns to baseline with efficiency. This quicker recovery is the ultimate sign of resilience, proving that hardships no longer leave deep, lasting scars on your psyche, but are integrated as experiences you move through. All of these markers are felt, not counted. They are measured in the quality of a deep breath taken when you once would have snapped, in the softness you bring to a tense moment, in the quiet confidence that settles in after a storm has passed. Your progress report is written in the gradual, almost imperceptible shift of your automatic responses, the silent upgrade of your default settings from frantic to fluid. Resilience is not a trophy you win and place on the shelf. It is a capacity, a living quality that requires maintenance, much like physical fitness. You do not go to the gym for 6 months, achieve a strong physique, and then assume you will stay that way forever without another workout. The body left unchallenged softens. The mind left in uninterrupted comfort does the same. This is the nature of the lifelong journey. There is no final destination where you become permanently resilient, immune to life's pressures. Instead, you are cultivating a dynamic skill, one that must be practiced, refreshed, and reaffirmed through the seasons of your life. The work is never truly done, and understanding this is the key to staying the course. Comfort will always beckon with a powerful, seductive voice. The mind's instinct to avoid friction is not a flaw to be eradicated, but a fundamental part of your biology. It will always resurface, suggesting that today you are too tired, that the effort is not worth it, that you have proven enough. This is not a sign of failure in your practice. It is the very condition of the practice itself. The commitment, therefore, is not to silence that voice forever, but to develop a consistent, gentle dialogue with it. It is the continual realignment of your actions with your deeper values, a daily choice to steer toward the meaningful friction, even when the current of ease pulls strongly in the other direction. Adopting this long-term perspective is what prevents disillusionment. If you expect linear progress, a straight upward line on a graph of your toughness, you will become frustrated. Some days will feel like breakthroughs where a challenge is met with effortless calm. Other days, a minor inconvenience will feel overwhelming, as if all your training has vanished. This is normal. It does not mean you have lost your resilience. It means you are human, navigating different levels of fatigue, stress, and emotional weather. The practice is not about eliminating the hard days, but about changing your relationship to them. On a difficult day, you might not take the full cold shower, but you might choose to end it with 30 seconds of cool water. You are still making the conscious choice, still honoring the commitment to engage, even at a reduced capacity. This is not backsliding, it is intelligent adaptation, maintaining the thread of the practice even when you cannot lift the full weight. This frames the work not as a separate project, but as an integral thread woven into the fabric of a meaningful life. It becomes part of how you live, not something you do to improve your life. The goal shifts from building a fortress against suffering to developing a graceful, responsive way of moving through all experience. You begin to see these small acts of voluntary discomfort as rituals of self-respect, daily affirmations that you are the author of your character. They are the quiet moments where you choose who you want to be, reinforcing that your agency is more powerful than your circumstances. Over decades, this consistent realignment shapes a life of profound inner sovereignty. The practice itself becomes a source of meaning, a private dialogue with your own potential that deepens with time. You are not just preparing for storms, you are learning to appreciate the unique texture of every kind of weather, knowing that your capacity to meet it, to learn from it, and to choose your stance within it is the truest form of strength you will ever own. The journey through voluntary discomfort reveals a simple, powerful truth. Resilience is not a gift you are born with, but a skill you can forge deliberately and strategically. This ancient Stoic practice is not about rejecting the modern world, but about wisely inoculating ourselves against its hidden fragilities. By choosing manageable hardship, we engage in a profound psychological recalibration. We lower the volume on what our nervous system considers a crisis, widening our window of tolerance for life's ordinary friction. We build a genuine tolerance for hardship, not through passive suffering, but through active, stress-inoculating training. Most importantly, we collect undeniable proof of our own agency, dismantling learned helplessness and reinforcing that we are the authors of our responses, not the victims of our circumstances. And in the quiet space of that practice, we learn to separate the raw sensation of discomfort from the catastrophic story our minds so quickly attach to it. discovering that we can feel anxious and still act, feel fear and still move forward. This tool, carved from the wisdom of 2,000 years ago, is uniquely suited for the challenges of today. It directly counteracts the paradox of a world engineered for ease, which can leave us feeling more brittle in the face of ordinary stress. It offers a way to build the psychological muscle that our environment no longer demands, but that our spirit deeply requires. The ultimate paradox, then, is this. By willingly embracing small, chosen hardships, we gain a profound freedom from life's inevitable, uninvited ones. We are not seeking out pain, but building a reservoir of strength so that when pain finds us, we are not drowned by it. We are cultivating an inner peace that does not depend on everything going right, but on knowing we can navigate things when they go wrong. The path forward begins not with a grand gesture, but with a single, small choice. Today, you can start weaving this thread into the fabric of your own life. The invitation is simple. Choose one tiny, voluntary discomfort. It could be taking the last 60 seconds of your shower cool. It could be putting your phone away an hour before bed and sitting with the quiet. It could be offering one piece of honest, kind feedback you have been avoiding. Do not make it a test, make it a curious experiment. Notice the resistance that arises. Observe the stories your mind tells, and then feel the quiet strength that comes from having chosen it yourself, from having turned the dial. That one small act is the first seed of an unshakable resilience, a quiet declaration that you are building a mind capable of meeting life not with fragility, but with grounded, graceful strength. Your journey begins with that single, deliberate step.